Hi, everyone. I'm Steve. I'm here with Dr. Nario. Thanks for being here, Doc.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me again. Always a pleasure.
All right, we're going to talk about Humanin, which is a peptide. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Peptides are all the rage right now. Everybody's talking about them, even the FDA, making sure they're regulated correctly and all that. So, Humanin is a peptide. So that's what we're going to talk about, what it does and all that stuff. First, if you guys are interested in what Dr. Nario does, he's at Biointegrative Health Center in Reno, Nevada. You can check them out online. They do a lot of IV drips, vitamins, and treat a lot of things. So you can check them out online, Biointegrative Health Center in Reno. Okay, so Doc, what is this peptide, Humanin?
So, Steve, today we're going to talk about something that sounds like a sci-fi character, but it's very real and it's very important for aging. It's called Humanin. Despite the name, it's not a supplement influencer, not a skincare brand, and not something you buy on Instagram. Humanin is a naturally occurring peptide made by your mitochondria, and its main job is simple: keep our cells alive under stress. And as we age, stress is kind of the whole story. And humanin is a very short peptide, 24 amino acids, discovered in the early 2001, I think. And this was actually they were doing a research on Alzheimer's disease. And they found it in the cells that gets affected in this pathology, where humanin is actually taking action in to prevent pathological conditions to actually progress into this type of dementia. So it makes it special because where it comes from, it's not from your nucleus, it's not a hormone, it's not a gland, it's actually encoded into your mitochondrial DNA. So this means that it's part of your cells that is actually ancient survival system that we are built in with. And this is when an emergency response is needed. Think of humanin as the fire extinguisher of your cells being grabbed on when things starts to go wrong. And again, as we all know, mitochondria is actually the monetary currency for aging. When we have bad mitochondria, this is where we have energy failure, increased cell death, and even loss of resilience. And this is where humanin comes in to say, don't die yet, and we can survive this.
So when you're talking about the cell, you're talking about cellular level. You're talking about the mitochondria. Is that right?
Uh, Meaning it's where it's coming from. But of course, the heart of the cell is, we always think of the DNA, the nucleus. We always have to remember the powerhouse of that cell is your mitochondria.
And what do you have? A trillion mitochondria in the body.
Possibly, probably even more.
And so these cells are dying off. So Humanin helps repair them and make them stronger. Is that right?
Yeah, so now you're going into basically what are the actions or the uses of humanin. So humanin, number one, it's really known for anti-apoptosis or anti-cell death. So humanin blocks what we call proteins that trigger programmed cell death and actually translates cells to survive longer under stress. So you have to remember, under stress, that's the word. It doesn't kill stress. It doesn't kill cells that are not under stress. So that's why it's studied in neuro or brain degeneration, cardiovascular disease, even metabolic aging. It improves what we call insulin sensitivity, glucose regulation, fat metabolism. And that's why you would see low humanin levels. So humanin is something produced by our body. Don't think of it as, oh, I need to get that peptide injected in me to get humanin. So humanin is produced by the mitochondria. And when it's low, we always find type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome. And yes, mitochondria always cares about sugar. Second one would be inflammation, right? Our third is inflammation and stress resilience. Humanin always reduces oxidative stress, lowers inflammatory signaling, protects against mitochondrial toxins, meaning in aging terms, less inflammaging and more cellular calming when you use humanin in your body.
So this is a peptide. We've talked about peptides. They're chains of amino acids. You said this one was about how many? How
24.
many? How many? 24. A chain of 24 amino acids. Now, does your body have less of it or produce less of it as we age?
Yeah, so that's a good point that you brought up, Steve. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Young cells higher humanin, older cells, lower humanin. So again, lower human is linked to frailty, cognitive decline, metabolic disease, cardiovascular risk. So aging isn't just a damage, it's a loss of protective signaling. And humanin is one of those signals. Here's the good news though. You don't need injections or exotic therapies to support humanin. Research suggests the human is increased by maybe things that we do already. Exercise, especially endurance and resistance training, caloric restriction and fasting, mitochondrial health strategies, and good sleep and circadian rhythms. Translation to that is the things that we already recommend for longevity helps production of more humanin. Thus humanin loves healthy mitochondria.
Now, how did I know? I had a feeling you were going to say exercise.
I think if you want a good answer for any longevity question, exercise will always be the right answer.
Yeah,
Just tips on test.
finding that out.
Yep.
So, of course, the longer a cell is healthy and strong, the healthier a person's going to be, right?
Right, right. And that's why humanin actually was focused on the study of, or even its use, the brain. And it became first famous in Alzheimer's research, showing that it protects neurons from the beta amyloid toxicity or the plaques that gets built in Alzheimer's, preserve the synaptic function or the connections of your neurons, and even reduces neuronal or brain cell destruction. So this doesn't mean it's a cure, but it suggests humanin is part of the brain's natural defense system. As we age, again, humanin levels decline in the brain, especially in these types of degenerative conditions. And this is why your brain notices everything using your humanin levels.
And mitochondria is everywhere. We're talking about trillions of them in the body. It affects your eyes, your brain, your heart, everything.
That's right. That's actually true. So humanin is a systemic type of parameter that you can use, not only as maybe I guess observing one organ in relation to that. So that's why it's more of a systemic a picture or a perspective.
So, now you can inject this as a synthetic peptide, right?
Yeah, so there that is true. So that's why now it actually is a peptide that again our patients are coming in with. But you have to remember again, studies, there are studies, human studies that are out there, but it's more observational. It's really not, as we all know, randomized controlled trial. And majority of the studies still lands on animals, which are of course our lab rats, our mice. But yes, this is something for research only for now. But you know that us being in the medical field, we need to understand that this is something being used by patients, and we need to guide them through this in accordance to medical standards.
Yeah, and we should mention, especially not me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a smart guy. And so we're not telling anybody to go find humanin from the guy in the gym or anything like that. We're not saying that. We're just telling you what it's being studied for, mostly in animals right now, right? But it is a legitimate peptide that is found in the body. They found it in the body, right?
It is. And when we talk about peptides, injectables, right? So there's one that I always get clinically making it a little bit confusing for patients. They thought it's same as MOTS-C. So here, let me just expound on this. So the difference between the two, or maybe let's talk about the similarities first. Both are what we call made in the encoded by the mitochondria. It's mitochondrial DNA, and then part of the body's ancient stress response actually are these specific peptides, and they're linked both to aging, metabolism, and resilience. But they do very different things. Think of them as two co-workers in the mitochondria. Humanin as the bodyguard and MOTS-C as the personal trainer. So let's kind of just break this down a little bit. Humanin for cell survival, MOTS-C for metabolic activation. Humanin prevents cell death. MOTS-C improves glucose and energy use. As you can see, it's promoting more energy for the body. Humanin for neuroprotection or brain protection and longevity. MOTS-C for metabolic fitness and insulin sensitivity, basically diabetes, or metabolic syndrome. Then human for anti-inflammation and actually is protective, and MOTS-C for exercise mimetic. Thus, really good for our healthier patients who are focused on strength training and endurance training. And Humanin focuses more on brain, heart, and the blood vessels. MOTS focuses on muscle, liver, and fat tissue. And Humanin kind of says to our system, don't die yet. And MOTS, let's move and burn fuel. So MOTS, more for our athletes, Humanin for our more pathological metabolic conditions that is kind of swaying more on the non-healthier patient.
So these are two mitochondrial peptides you're talking about. What
Right.
about
That
FS31? You can throw that one in there too, right?
Yeah, it's a scary one also. But this is the more common clinical confusion that I get with my patients, thinking that oh, it's just the same, right? They're not. So this is the reason why they work together. And that's why using both is not a bad idea. Again, it's just the cost that's going to be behind it.
The cost and your physician's approval, right?
But yeah, that's that too. Some patients
Yeah.
forget about that.
Yeah. Um, so it seems like the research on these, not just mitochondria peptides, but all peptides,
Hmm.
it seems like it's really ramping up right now. And you have a lot of patients. Would you say you have a significantly higher amount of patients asking you about peptides in the last year?
Yeah. The thing here is peptides are starting to be, I don't want to say a trend because it's been there for the longest time, but they're just discovering the powers of peptides and how natural therapies actually can help help the body better in terms of prevention and just maintaining the system. So, and again, when you think about pathologies and when you're using conventional therapies that doesn't work, this is when they're trying to get new options, and these are the options that they could actually go for. And if you think about it, if it's even putting money out of your pocket, you're going to be surprised. Patients will pay for it just because they want to see and seek more therapies than what they're supposed to be getting.
Yeah, and I mean, a peptide is your body can make them. Your body can make any peptide, right?
That's right.
Because it's just a chain of amino acids. You eat protein, your body takes protein apart. Now you have amino acids sitting in amino acid pool, and your body puts it together in short chains, which are called peptides.
Yeah. And again, that is true. That's why the younger you are, the better you have this naturally. But you have to remember aging, toxins, environment, the stress that we encounter every day. All of these contributes to the decline of these peptides in our bodies. That's why we need help. And that's why I'm so of much of an advocate, as we spoke about a while ago, about micro dosing, especially for younger individuals, because you are still creating these peptides in your system. If you just need a little boost because you had something going on, a health scare for a little bit, then you can definitely just push that normalcy again with these little dosing of peptide.
And it sends a signal. A peptide sends a signal. A little signal is still a signal, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's why, as you can see, MOTS and human works on the cell surface receptors. MITA-C works in the actual DNA sequence, so a nuclear receptor. So it's inside. So you would see how some people would say, oh, I'll just use MOTS first, and I'll use the humanin later. You would see they have both different modes of action into your cell. So using them together actually synergistic rather than against each other.
So we hit our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. This is when things start to diminish. And it's because we don't have as many of these peptide chains in our body. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not only blaming peptides in relation to that, but also there's so many things to consider in terms of why we age, like telomere length, right? And even the methylation processes. But definitely one of the important things is really, yeah, aging and the functions that we had when we were younger, comparing it to now you being older and really more of like not only physical challenges, but also mental, emotional, spiritual challenges that we get in every day, thus depleting the core of our system.
That's why, again, me not being the doctor, but I'm a huge advocate of protein and amino acids,
Mhm.
especially as you age. And you know what? I talk to older adults all the time, like me or older. They're not eating enough protein. I mean, how much protein did you eat? Well, I had an egg and some peanut butter. That's it? It's not
Mhm.
gonna do anything.
That is true. That is true. And the thing here is again, when you think about the safety of humanin, we still caution hormonal sensitive cancers when they use this. We still want to, well, it's being kept an eye on when you're talking about cancer. But really, the studies have been falling that it's not really promoting cancer. So it's really because it's say we always talk about it actually prevents the destruction of cells, right? But it prevents the destruction of normal cells, not abnormal cells. So when you talk about mitochondrial stress, this is occurring mostly in pathological states. So that's why it actually helps promote the destruction of these cells, but that's still being studied on. So, but as part of my maybe education for patients, still, I want to caution them about using humanin in relation to cancer conditions.
So, do you have any last suggestions for our listeners? You said exercise, but any other suggestions, people that are trying to find out more about peptides or research or this particular one, Humanin? Do you have any last suggestions for our listeners?
All right. So, if you, as I mentioned to you, mitochondrial peptides, this is something that can be enhanced not only through injectables, not taking all these peptides that we buy in the market, we can actually increase them naturally. So, I'm not only speaking for humanin, but also MOTS. So, as I said to you, if you are tested in an exam about what boosts both of these two mitochondrial peptides, exercise, especially combination endurance and resistance. Another one is actually intermittent fasting, caloric
How about sauna?
restriction. I'm sorry?
Sauna too.
Sauna, yes, of course. But yeah, intermittent fasting, there's a lot of studies about that and how it increases your mitochondrial peptides and then also your mitochondrial support supplements, right? CoQ10 and so resveratrol, all of those are actually good supports to actually build that mitochondria up. And then definitely good sleep and circadian rhythm regulation. So again, for more specificity, MOTS is increased more in endurance training, and Humanin is actually really more for increasing stress resilience and brain protection. So your mitochondrial responds to lifestyle faster than supplements. You always have to remember that.
You know, great information as always. And what I hear you saying is live a healthy lifestyle.
Always, always the right answer,
Yeah, live a healthy lifestyle, and all these peptides are going to be elevated and created better in your body and do what they're supposed to do.
right? Correct.
Any last thoughts, Doc?
But again, as I mentioned, Humanin is one of the I'm not I want to say newer types of peptides that are out there. It's been there. Just right now, the growth of research and material that supports it is getting bigger, especially with brain health. So that's something that I want you guys to look out for in the future because Alzheimer's research is advancing so fast because you would see the populations being taken over by this condition like wildfire. And as part of the tools that you would have, think about Humanin all the time.
Crazy. All right, Doc, we appreciate your input and your research. You guys have questions, put them in the comment section. I try to get those to the doctor. So thanks for being with us, Doc.
Well, see, thank you again for having me. As we all know, that knowledge is power. And thank you for letting me provide you with edge on longevity and health maintenance, which I call the biological edge or the bio edge.